we'll give it a few moments to try and build an audience, see if anybody shows up tonight. So, hello, who's that? There are people there. Okay, cool. Hi, guys. Oh, and they're gone. It's weird how the audience thing works for this, and I'm still trying to figure it out. I'll wait until it says, I guess, go. I don't know if there's actually like a. So it says, you're live, we're building an audience for you, and then that kind of goes up, one down, up, down, up, down. All right, a couple people there, who knows? Sometimes it tells you who's watching, sometimes it doesn't until later. So, the reason I wanted to do a show tonight, or talk about it, was some big stuff happened today, on the media side. Hi, Marilee. There, as I noted the other day, there hasn't been a news conference yet for Trumperdink. I love that one, Trumperdink. I think that's great. Since midsummer. So, hey, love. So they haven't had any media. So he had the media today. He had what I guess is how press conferences are going to work now, which is that he invited them all up to his palace in New York. So the way he did this was he invited all the people from the cable news and had them agree to this off-the-record meeting that they all thought was going to be about how their access was going to work in this new administration and how they were going to get to, explain things to him and all that. But it turned out, as he immediately leaked to the New York Post, he basically came in and dressed them all down and put them all in their place. This essentially puts him above and beyond the critique of cable news and all of that. Again, like I was saying, this is part of Bannon's strategy. Then later, there was, I don't know if you saw with the New York Times stuff going back and forth, where he was going to talk to the New York Times, and he wasn't going to talk to the New York Times, and he was going to talk to the New York Times, and there was a tweet there, and tweet there, and tweet there. They ended up actually talking to the New York Times, and in that one, it wasn't off the record. And so in that one, we learned a number of things. A bunch of stuff, but I've got this. I'm going to read this real quick. In what was it? In Drumpful Thinskin's interview with the New York Times, he addressed a range of topics. Son-in-law Jared Kushner, a real estate heir who has no experience of diplomacy, could help forge peace between Israel and the Palestinians. The U.S. should not be a nation builder. Republican leaders love him again. He can run his business in the country both perfectly with no conflict of interest, and there's some connectivity between human activity and climate change. He also came out and said he doesn't want to bother the Clintons anymore. They're good people, so he's not going to prosecute that. And that whole lock her up was just like build the wall. Just a bullshit lie to get people excited. So here's the thing that you need to understand. He's came out and basically disavowed all this stuff that he's done in the campaign and then attacked the media. So this is part of Bannon's long-term strategy for recreating the country that they want to do. I think that the people who are actually scared about what, like Sessions and the alt-right and all of these guys, and Flynn, by the way, that appointment, as National Security Advisor, what he does is he has the ear of the president and is supposed to take information across all these departments and then coalesce that and then present all the options, which he has no experience doing. He's a very aggressive battlefield commander, which, so the war, the global war on terror, as we used to call it, is going to heat up again. But that's not going to happen immediately. And this is one of the things I think that folks need to understand about normalization of what's going on and how to deal with it a little bit, because you got to realize he just backed away against all like a lot of the really kind of crazy absurd stuff he was talking about during the campaign. Backed away immediately from that stuff, right? And is now trying to go as like, oh well, that was just all campaign stuff. Now it's this, but at the same time he's putting into position of power people who will reshape some of the systemic racism and bigotry issues that we've had, as well as like this really dark strategist in Bannon who wants to remake like the world into this ethno-nationalist idea, which, and again, the ambition for remaking the world is huge, the incompetence is huge, and so that ultimately is going to lead, I think, of course, to horrible places. We'll talk about that a little more Sunday, but it's not going to happen tomorrow. And he's backed off on all this stuff. And so this is what I wanted to talk about, the dude. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the dude, but this guy named Jeff Bridges played the dude in a movie called The Big Lebowski. I don't know, it was kind of an indie hit. A couple people saw it here and there. He's something of a god to a lot of people. And he had an interview. This came out just yesterday. So basically, I can read you this real quick because the money quote's at the end, but here we go. Says the actor continued, one of those things that most appealing about Trump is his unpredictability. A less kind word might be his hypocrisy, but unpredictability and hypocrisy are things that each of us human beings share. It's something that we all struggle with and work with. I am pleased to hear his acceptance speech. Taken out of context, that would be wonderful. Talking about unpredictability, who would have thought that he would be praising Hillary Clinton and thanking her for her wonderful work after trashing her and inviting all the people who didn't vote for him, that he'd be looking for guidance from these people and all these wonderful things. I'm rooting for the guy, but we'll see how it all goes. You just don't know how it will all work out. Did I burp? Good one. So you've got, essentially, when you're pushing this narrative that this guy's about to just destroy the country and do all this crazy stuff, and meanwhile, you got the dude being like, let's just give the crazy dude a chance. You have to back off a little bit. And we're not going to see, barring like some huge evidence of electronic vote tampering, which we'll see if that shows up. I posted a story about it earlier, but I don't know if that's going to actually happen or anything. I'm sure they'll look into it, and if something shows up, then we'll hear, hopefully. Because at this point, there's still plenty of media that can happen, but you're not going to see enough public outrage to change this before January, and I absolutely feel people should go to all the marches they can, but with the notion that what you're doing is settling in for a longer haul against this systemic tide of regressive policies that are coming and people who are going to enforce them. You're not going to see you'll see again, the thing that again that's really kind of, it tweaks me still and makes me very cautious about all these interviews is I'm still not seeing the acceptance that Bernie, I'm still not seeing the acceptance in him that his election has unleashed some of these really dark themes that he used to inspire people, and I'm not that just bothers me, because if you're not seeing that now, at what point will you see it, right? You got all these tweets about Hamilton, but nothing about the swastikas being drawn on places, or just a lot of nasty things that have happened. And they're not all BS, but again, if they can, and this is Bannon's idea, right? If you guys if we're all crying wolf constantly, wolf, 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 when they show up, how's anybody gonna know? And they're not here yet. What we have now are these, pissed off lambs like stabbing each other, which is gonna happen, of course, and especially when the guy's like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this, but people need to breathe, relax. and settle into it a little bit, because he's not going to immediately do all the crazy stuff, and it's not immediately going to be a country where they can just arrest you for being brown. Now, the issue, of course, and the big danger coming, long term is, when something big happens. And I mentioned this earlier, the possibility of, dirty nuke or something like that is not, it's not small. And when you put a bunch of incompetent people in positions of power, the, potential for calamity, of course, rises tremendously, exponentially, I think is actually the word there. So after something big happens, and then these are the people who do it, then, of course, then there'll be immediately cause for concern. But that's where the Bannon's attack on the media is so important for them to win when that happens. And if they really push for something hard, who can stand against them and how powerfully they can stand. So, for those who are trying to keep people convinced, and as I am, I think one of the more important things to focus on right now is the corruption, and trying to keep that from being normalized. We've always known that there was this undercurrent of hate in American society and this racist stuff, and it rears its ugly head when they get the chance to. But we've always known it was there. But this officially endorsed corruption is bad, is really bad. And one of the things, I know a lot of people already think that we're hugely corrupt, and in some ways I think there are, some truth to that, but not in the way like this. Not like, oh, yeah, I know you're the foreign ambassador from the Philippines. You're doing the development work for my thing there. That's right. Which happened. Right? That's the Philippines guys. One is working on a project. So, I mean, that kind of just like blatant corruption is I think, should be the focus before Election Day, and the emoluments issue, as you will. But as far as like the Gestapo stuff, I think focusing on that. Also, and there's been a little bit of the normalization about the alt-right and that term. You got to realize, again, a big portion of Breitbart's crowd is not like out-and-out hood-wearing racist tats and all that. A lot of them, especially, again, this is what I was talking about, this millennial group of young men, they're just oppressed in their minds. And is that not a legitimate thing? I don't know. But they just troll to get attention, and they're not fully convinced and not fully bought into this notion that all the races have to be separated in order for them to have a real chance in society, which is, the alt-right ideology ultimately. And if you read, it's out there, read the stuff that they've written about this. The Traditional Conservative Guide to the Alt-Right on Breitbart. You can read it, and there's a couple paragraphs in there, and they make it explicitly clear that ultimately, for things to be fair, you have to separate the races or the cultures, which they call the same thing, and they do this full defense. But again, you can't just start with that as a conversation, especially when that's not happening right now. So you got to chill out a little bit on this and realize what the strategy is to destroy the credibility of the media. So when things start to grind in, there's not going to be really much resistance, if not cheering for it falling apart. And the concept of how he tries to interact with the media is really wild. So again, it was only the New York Times that stood correctly, right? And only the one that said, no, we're not going to agree with this off the record BS. We're going to have reporters there, and they're going to be talking about it. But all the cable news gave in and did it. And then he ripped them a new one, and then immediately, before they even walked out the building, it was being published that he had done this and put them in their place. And that's part of the larger, long-term Bannon strategy. So anyway, that was the point tonight. I don't know if anybody has any questions or anything. What else happened today that was kind of wild and crazy on that? My connection is so weak. But yeah, that's what I wanted to cover. So I don't know. You just gotta keep. You gotta keep watching. There's gonna be more. And again, I'm not saying accept everything is normal, because it's not at all normal. But again, you can't cry wolf every 20 minutes or so. But you can point out obvious corruption, and so I think that would be worthwhile to continue to do, because that's very important to fight against even now. So anyway, I don't know, that was all I was going to talk about. Anybody has anything to say? If not, I'll just wander off, because I got stuff to do. Alright, good night. The website, real quick at the end of this, I'm building a whole website to keep these chats on there, because I want to progress through some stuff, and I'm also going to do some weird stuff later, like weird stuff that I have planned out, and those will show up. But the website is called Escaping Dystopia. I've linked it a couple times. It's very bare bones and straightforward, but it should be fun. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Have a good night.